We've established that HTML is the language that web pages are written in. Our next step is to see HTML in action. So in this lesson, we'll be creating the world's simplest web page together. We don't need any special software to begin creating web pages. Now in the next lesson, I will encourage you to roll up your sleeves and follow along. But for this first lesson, I want you to sit back, relax, and simply watch. I want you to pay attention to how simple HTML is. In front of you is a text editor. I will explain in detail in future lessons what a text editor is, and I will help you find the right text editor for your preferences and for your platform. But for now, just think of a text editor as a place where we can type. Okay? And then the only other program I'm currently running on my computer is a web browser. I'm using Mozilla Firefox, but you might want to use Google Chrome or Internet Explorer or Safari or any other web browser. Now what we're going to do in this first lesson is write a bit of code in our text editor, and then we're going to view that code through the eyes of our web browser. Back in the text editor, we'll begin writing code. Let's imagine our first goal is to add an important heading to the page. And we want that important heading to read, "Hello World." Now that we've included the code for a heading, let's save this text as a file, just like we would with a word processing program. So if you initiate the save prompt from File Save, you can then choose where you would like to save the file. I'm going to save it in a Learn HTML folder that I've created, and then I'm going to name the file Index. Now, we can see here's a folder on my desktop, and here's the file that we just created. I want to open this file in my web browser, so in Firefox. For you, it might be Chrome or Internet Explorer or Safari. So all I'm going to do is find the file that we just created and drag it on top of my web browser. The first thing that we notice is that this looks different than what we typed in our text editor. In our text editor, we typed less than symbol h1 greater than symbol hello world, and then less than symbol / h1 greater than symbol. But in our web browser, we simply see hello world. This is because HTML is not designed for humans to read. It's designed for web browsers to receive and then render a web page, and then humans can read the web page that it outputs. So for example, all this code did is create a heading level 1 or H1 element. HTML pages are made up of different elements. So for example, what if we wanted to tell the web browser to output a slightly less important heading? H2. And we can include any text that we'd like. So we can say, "Hello world" again. So if I save and then click refresh in Firefox, we can see the new text. Next, let's create a bit of standard text or paragraph text between these two headings. P for paragraph. This is a paragraph that contains only one sentence. So let's review the syntax that we're using to create elements. I like to say that writing HTML is like making sandwiches. So you can see that this is the start tag, and it's essentially a piece of bread. This is the end tag, and it's another piece of bread. So that leaves the peanut butter and jelly or the meat or whatever we want to include in the sandwich in between the two slices of bread. So let's review the syntax for the bread slices. This is the less than symbol. This is the code for the element that we wish to create. In this case, it was P for paragraph. And then this is the greater than symbol. And then the ending piece of bread, the closing tag, uses a / right before the code for the element. So if I save and then go to our web browser and click the refresh button, you can see that we now have a piece of standard paragraph text between the two headings. If you recall from earlier, I mentioned that our goal was to create the world's simplest web page, and I think we have achieved that. So we have a heading, a bit of standard text, and then a smaller heading. Let's review what we've learned in this lesson. We've learned that we simply type code into a text editor and then save that file as an HTML file that our web browser can then load, and that's what creates a web page. We learned how to create an element. An element is simply a start tag, a bit of content, and then a closing tag. We learned that there are different element types at our disposal that we can use to give semantic meaning to our page's content. In this first lesson, we only saw 3 different element types in action: heading level 1, paragraph, and heading level 2. Now obviously there's a lot more to the web than headers and paragraphs. We will learn about all of the different HTML elements throughout this course, but there's no sense in trying to memorize all of them in the first lesson. The key concept for this lesson is that HTML is a language used to describe content. We give different types of content their own different and semantically chosen labels. Now before we go any further, it is important to note that HTML is not for adding style to pages. This means that we should not use HTML to control the color of text, the size of text. We should not use HTML to assign background colors, or background images, or padding, or margin, or borders, or anything else that is a matter of design preference. HTML is for content. It's how we describe our content and give it semantic meaning. If you want to add style to a page, that's what cascading style sheets, or CSS, is for. Now we will learn CSS inside and out in the second half of this course. The first half of the course is about understanding what HTML has to offer. Or in other words, during the first half of the course, the pages we create will look incredibly basic. And once we have a rock-solid understanding of HTML, or in other words, halfway through the course, we will begin learning CSS in order to add the design to web design. So currently, let's stay focused only on HTML. In our next lesson, I'll encourage you to roll up your sleeves and get some hands-on experience. So you'll basically be doing what we just did in this lesson. I'll show you how to set up a text editor, make sure that you understand how to save the file correctly so that it saves with an HTML extension, and then we'll learn how to load it in your web browser so you can begin experimenting writing HTML code just like I did in this lesson. I think that'll be a lot of fun, so I'll see you in the next lesson.